What is up, everyone? You are watching Neon Gaming Dimension. Today we are breaking down all of the news and the good stuff, the bad stuff, the weird stuff from the Nintendo Direct. My name is Gage Luke, aka Luke Shot First, and thanks for being here and watching. So, first off, what did I think of this Nintendo Direct? Nintendo Directs range from pretty weird and meh to amazing surprises that we would never believe in 1,000 years. Get hype moments, throwing hats, knocking water bottles, destroying laptops type of moments. So did we get one of those today? Did we get a meh one today? I'm gonna say it's somewhere in between. I think there was some stuff to be excited about if you're a Nintendo fan. There was some stuff that was kind of weird and kind of left me a little puzzled. And then there was a whole lot of Square Enix meh garbage that I think didn't need to be there. And I think we are going to soon be seeing the end of that era of Square Enix. So this may be one of those last Nintendo Directs that we get that type of stuff at. Overall, I thought it was a good time. I enjoyed myself. The pacing was Nintendo Direct-ish, so there was funny little gimmicks, the funny little snap, the quirky little Japanese timing that they have of everything, which I totally appreciate. You know, not necessarily the way I would do a showcase, but fits their style, and they very much define their style over time. The main things that kind of just continue to make me puzzled about Nintendo's just overall messaging is how they really do have this ability to hold games for longer than other companies would. They have this ability to try and find the place for games to hit their best spot, and I appreciate that strategy. But at the same time, it leaves you sometimes thinking like, did this come out without the information that I need to get excited about it? There's certain just timeline things that make me confused about what I should expect. You know, there's this very well-known secret that the Nintendo Switch successor is going to be coming out next year. Now, we don't know when. Could be, as they did with the Switch, in March. It could be later in the year, a holiday type of thing. Obviously, that drives more sales for the normies and that sort of thing. Nevertheless, because of that, some of the games they announced today, it's hard to get excited for them in a certain way because of not knowing the information. Now, of course, we'll get more information over time, and then excitement ramps up and all that kind of stuff. But I think overall, that's what's puzzling me about Nintendo. They obviously make WNDs, aka weird Nintendo decisions. There was a lot of that here. There's some things I never thought I'd saw again, like Mario and Luigi, brothership? Definitely didn't think I would see something like that in the Mario Luigi franchise, of which we have not seen an entry in 9 years. The Nintendo Switch Online stuff continues to confuse me. I don't know if there's just licensing issues on some games versus others, but yet they seem to figure it out in some cases and not in others, even with their own properties. It's all a little confusing to me. But let's get into the games and what was announced and what was cool. The big news from today, obviously, Metroid Prime 4, subtitled now, it's called Beyond. Shout out to Beyond. This was a weird one for me in two ways. One, the villain that they were shown, I believe his name is Cyrus, is a direct villain sequel person to 3. That means that they really are going to be pulling from lore, from, story beats, or maybe, stuff that happened in the sequels beyond just Metroid Prime 1. If it were me, I would think this is your opportunity to grow the Metroid fan base, to really have a spiritual successor to that original Metroid Prime. And what is the vision of Metroid Prime in a modern setting with newer hardware, modern sensibilities? Now, obviously Nintendo doesn't do what maybe the average gamer would think, or someone living in 2024 would think. They say, what was special about Metroid Prime? Let's replicate that. And this looked exactly like Metroid Prime. So much to the point that it's hard for an eye that is living in 2024 to look back at a GameCube game, but it really didn't feel like it was that much higher res or that much higher fidelity. There was maybe some more stuff going on on the screen at some points. There seemed to be bigger draw distance, but how much of that was a rendered cutscene versus actual gameplay? I want to see more. To me, it didn't feel like what I really wanted to see when I first saw Metroid Prime 4 again after the whole debacle with it not going well and then getting shoved off to retro and then all that stuff. I think what I really wanted to see from this first initial reveal was, wow, holy crap, Nintendo is coming back to push the level of graphics and art in video games. They obviously do amazing things with a little bit of hardware, like Tears of the Kingdom and everything. Yes, the art style carries that game forward. Still in portions of that game, I feel as though the art style still doesn't carry it past the shortcomings of the Switch. There was a lot of stuttering in that game for me, a lot of pop-in, a lot of just kind of funky edges of things, and things looked fuzzy and weird. And I just, in this day and age, in 2024, after playing on my 4K TV with 60 frames a second and really amazing high fidelity games of late, it's harder and harder for me to go back to the Switch and feel like, even if the art style is impeccable, that this level of fidelity is acceptable. And this to me looked like an up-resed GameCube game, and I know that's a little bit harsh, but there was a time, like when Metroid Prime, the original one, came out, that felt like it stood right alongside Halo 1, which was at the time a very cutting-edge piece of graphical technology, especially for console. And I felt the same way about Metroid Prime. I felt there was moments in those worlds with the reticles and the environmental storytelling that I found the graphics were absolutely jaw-droppingly gorgeous on a Nintendo console that was right alongside the Xbox and the PlayStation 2 at the time. I wish that we were in an era where that was happening again. I wish that the Switch 2 was coming out, it was a 4K device, and we were seeing the power alongside, like with a Metroid drop. Say it, set your flag, say Metroid is a premier Nintendo title, and we're gonna put it out, launch title for the Switch with amazing, impeccable graphics, and show you, even if it's not necessarily like a frenetic first-person shooter the way that other people might expect. It's not a Doom, it's not a Halo, but let's make it still that Metroidvania puzzle, platforming, puzzle solving, like intelligent shooter, you know, with amazing boss fights and set pieces and wild worlds. And let's make Metroid. Instead, this feels to me like it's catering to the Metroid lovers, which there are them out there, but they are, to be fair, a couple of million people. You know what I mean? And that sounds like a lot of people in some ways, but when most Nintendo first-party games are selling 15 to 20 million copies, and even Luigi's Mansion games are selling 10 million copies, it's hard for me to not see Nintendo push this and really make it known to the masses, like, this is a Nintendo franchise you have to pay attention to. It was a little disappointing, if I'm being honest. Most people on the internet right now do not feel that way. They feel like, this is amazing, this was the best Nintendo Direct of all time, yada yada yada. For me, Metroid was a bit disappointing. I still was excited that it exists. I'm still excited that it might come out on the successor, even if it's cross-gen with the Switch. There are some things that I'm a little disappointed about, but that's okay. Next up, let's talk Zelda. This was a big and welcome surprise. These are the type of things that I do truly enjoy at Nintendo Directs. When you get something out of left field that we could all speculate about, you know, Zelda's being a semi-annual thing, it seems like. They really want to put a Zelda out in some capacity yearly, or at least every other year. The fact, though, that we're getting a brand new Zelda in the final year of the Switch's life cycle is pretty amazing. And when you look back at the Switch, you're going to see Link's Awakening, you're going to see the Skyward Sword remaster, remake thing, you're going to see Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and now Echoes of Wisdom. And that's a pretty amazing swath of games. I might even be missing one. I mean, I guess there's like the Hero Muso game that was things like that. Oh, and the Rhythm game. Anyways, those were third party. But I am very excited to see them branch out. I like this kind of chibi, cutesy, toy-like art style. I think the Link's Awakening game, that was really perfect for that, because that game was, you know, the narrative of that game is it's sort of a dream sequence. It's very odd, and you know, it's mystical and magical, and I think that game really serviced that. There have been some people around the internet that didn't want that same style for a Link's to the Past game, because Link to the Past is much darker. It's more akin to something like an Elden Ring in the story. It doesn't go that hard, but you know what I mean? Or the Lord of the Rings in the story. Something where there is impending doom and there is darkness. There's the whole overworld, dark world thing going on. And so I tend to agree that something more of a dark and gothic style would be better than a chibi toy miniature style. However, this trailer did a really good job of psyching us out, making us think it was Link to the Past, or at least I did. And then pretty shortly afterwards, no, this is a completely new thing in which you're playing as Zelda, and the combat's completely retooled, even though it's going to be featuring 2D Zelda classic systems in some way or another. I think this was really cool. I think that the world looked gorgeous. I think that this art style is going to be really rad. I think they're taking a lot of things from Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, which is cool. This is a different team. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the team that did Link's Awakening, the remake. However, I don't know that that's confirmed as of now. So it's very cool. You can finally play as Zelda. This has been something that should have happened, I think, years ago. It's been, what, 35 years of Zelda now? I think we could have gotten a game where you play as her. She's always been pretty cool. Sheik is a really cool concept. In this one, it seems like it's not necessarily Sheik, although she was wearing a hood at some point. But I think it's cool that you're going to have to save Link for once. And I definitely think that the systems that they showed off were very interesting. The UI, even for these echoes that you're going to be using, reminded me a ton of Tears of the Kingdom and selecting through your different Sheikah Slate type of powers, or your arm or whatever. And the only thing that concerns me a little bit is that ultimately I still would like to be just straight up hack and slash combat in some way or another. I hope that there is echoes that you get that aren't just making bokoblins fight for you or throwing rocks at them, or I hope you do get a bomb at some point, or a boomerang or a bow and arrow. I mean, those parts of Zelda are pretty important to me in a lot of ways, because it is the progression of how you move through the game, and there is Metroidvania-esque elements of Zelda where you get something from a temple or one of the dungeons, and it allows you to progress further in areas of the other game. This looks like it's going to be more of an open approach to puzzle solving, where someone might use a bouncy thing to get up somewhere, or to bounce on top of a boss or something like that, and another person might build a barrier around a boss and then throw rocks at him, or I'm just speculating. But I think Aonuma certainly has said in interviews in the past that he thinks that is the new direction for Zelda, and that in the modern gamer is looking for to write their own narrative on how they get from one point to another. And I'm totally okay with that. I think there's games that are exemplary of that, like Breath of the Wild, certainly Elden Ring of late, in which there's different ways that you can do something, and they're all okay, even if you kind of broke out of the boundaries of what the game seems like it wants to let you do, even though ultimately behind the scenes the game is perfectly happy to let you do those things. So I think there's a lot to be said about this game. I think I can't wait to see more. Can't wait to know a little bit more about the systems and the combat, hopefully. And I would love if at some point you unlock some more straight up ability to attack someone. I find that Nintendo at times has treated its female heroines with this feeling like they had this need to drastically change what their capabilities are versus their male ones. Obviously, not with Samus Aran, who we just saw in Metroid Prime 4. She has forever been badass, and there's been no male character alongside her to rival her in that sort of way that I know of. I'm not super deep on the Samus lore, but it just feels to me like, why can't we just have a game where Zelda is Zelda, and like she uses a sword and she fights things, and you know what I mean? That's not I think Nintendo is always pushing to do new things, try new systems, and they want excuses to use games to push systems forward, change gameplay. Nintendo gameplay is king. It's much less about the story. Even Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, their stories were pretty much a cookie cutter hero's journey of some kind, or save the princess or whatever, you know what I mean? There's a couple twists and turns, but nothing revolutionary, certainly in storytelling. So they might just be like, hey, this is our excuse to try a new system, and let's have Zelda be the protagonist. And I forget what her little wand is called. It's like Try, which is pretty on the nose. So I'm excited about this. I'm excited to see more. It's coming out this year, which is pretty cool. I do think that the Link's Awakening game that came out a few years ago did not run great. At the time on the Switch, it was framey. Between scenes, when you transferred into the next little square, it would often lag. The menu, almost every single time I brought it up, took a hot second. it would come up, glitch, wait for it. All right, now I can move the cursor. And then same thing, taking it down, then the game would glitch. So would I like to see this on the Switch too? Yes. But I do think that having games like this come out so close to the Switch 2's launch is almost certainly confirmation that there's going to be some sort of cross compatibility and back compat with the Switch 2, the Super Switch, the Switch 64, whatever you want to call it. I really hope so, because actually recently, and on me speaking on a Nintendo video might make this blasphemy, but I recently sold my Switch to a friend who had never played Switch before. I was like, here you go. I'm not really playing anything on it right now. I didn't really think that I would foresee anything in the future coming out for it that I would need to play before the Switch 2. For the most part, that's been true. And I was like, you need to experience this system. Let me hook you up. I've got a bunch of accessories, yada, yada, yada. And so I hooked him up, and him and his significant other were really excited about it because they both wanted to, experience all the party games and all the co-op games and stuff, of which there are many. But this game isn't going to make me buy a Switch before the Switch 2. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go out and buy a new Switch. However, I would really hope that it comes out to the successor to the Switch, because I will be buying one of those unless for some reason it's a Wii U sort of scenario and they take some weird left turn that I'm not into, and it's got smell-o-vision and all games require you to smell things. Something like that could maybe turn me off. I dipped out of Nintendo for the entire Wii and Wii U era because I just was not a motion controls guy, and it really turned me off from those types of games. Again, they were fun gimmicks for a night of drinking with your friends, but they were not how I actually wanted to consume games. So we'll see. I'm optimistic about this one, and I'm really truly hoping that I can play it on the Switch's successor. Let's talk about some other things that were at the Direct today. This was a weird one. Mario and Luigi Brothership. Slightly different art style, a little more cel shaded, reminding me of almost like Disney vibes, the way that Mario and Luigi were animated. I'm not opposed to it. I do want Mario and his universe to look different from the way it has in a while. I think that the old sprite work and the old way that the World games, Super Mario World and Super Mario Land games looked, I thought was unique and interesting and clever, and something that was truly Nintendo. It was Nintendo's style and look. And going forward, the genericism of pretty much everything since 64, and even 64 has its own vibe because of the low poly elements of the first 3D generation. But going forward since then, I really haven't liked the way Mario's looked. It makes it so kiddie, it makes it so bubbly and shiny and textureless, and I just, those worlds don't entice me because of it. I'm a pretty outspoken Mario hater. I love Mario Party games, I love Mario sports games, Mario Karts. I love the old Marios, even though I'm really terrible at them. And I just, it's been a while since a Mario World, like the intrigue of the world has really pulled me in. And the kind of quirkiness of the characters no longer really resonates with me now that I'm an adult, even though I'm a grown man-child. But this, I will say, this art style was interesting. Still a little kiddie for me, still all that, but I thought that there was elements of this game that looked really cool and a little bit more whimsical. The RPG games are really awesome, and the Paper Mario games have been some of my favorite Mario art styles. So I would love to see this move into a different direction and maybe be something for future Mario games to, keep iterating on. The game itself is not for me. I never did the Mario and Luigi games. I didn't really like them that much. Or the new Super Mario Brothers, or the Wii U games I've never even played. So, not saying that I couldn't get into it, but it was not for me. I'm sure the people who are excited about this, though, are totally excited, and good for them. Okay, some big ones for me. Smaller big ones, but big ones. The HD 2D remakes of these Dragon Quest games are very exciting to me. I am a big Dragon Quest fan, really more of a Dragon Warrior fan. The Dragon Warrior Monsters game on Game Boy and Game Boy Advance were absolutely some of my favorite games back in the day, and even to this day, that original Dragon Warrior Monsters is one of my favorite games of all time. It's on my top 10 games of all time. I understand its shortcomings. I understand that every single world that you go to is just this crappily rendered grid of like an overworld where you fight monsters. But the systems in that game, it's kind of rival tactics to Pokemon, the breeding system that happens in there, all the attacks and everything, and all the monsters themselves have such charisma and such a unique, if fantasy tropey, but just a really cool, unique art style. Again, I loved these games when they were 2D, when they were sprite work. Since then, even though I loved Echoes of an Elusive Age, which is Dragon Quest XI, the art style hasn't done it for me as much. It's gone a little more towards Studio Ghibli now with a little bit more fidelity, but it's still very round, and it did the Pokemon thing where all the intimidating looking dragons and the intimidating looking like Skull Knights and stuff like that turned into goofy, like big-eyed, rare style, just goofy characters. And it's while there is still some bosses that look threatening in Echoes of Elusive in Dragon Quest XI, it lost that dark fantasy vibe, and it lost that, like, just because it's a kid consuming something doesn't mean that it can't freak you out a little bit. You know, the John Carpenter days, you know, some of the Tim Burton stuff, you know, something can be creepy for children or odd for children, or, you know, straight up gross, and I think children can handle it more than maybe modern creators do. And I just wish that that both Pokemon and most Nintendo properties, and certainly Dragon Quest, would go back to having a little bit more of like a, you know, darker anime-y style vibe of things. Therefore, this 2D HD thing that they've got going on is a perfect solution for that. It still feels modern, it feels new and revised. You know, games like Live Alive and Octopath Traveler. Both of those games just have such incredible atmosphere, and just making your way through the worlds, looking at each scene, even each battle scene, is just a truly delightful image. And so I'm very excited to see more of that. There is some word on the street that these games are still very much old NES games or Super NES games that are just modernized in look but not in system, so that they are probably still really grindy, and they are probably still pretty obtuse as far as objectives and all that kind of stuff. The obtuseness I don't necessarily mind so much, especially having played Dragon Quest 1 and 2. I've never played 3, but as a kid, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 I was a big fan of. Although I don't believe I ever beat either of them because I was a kid, and it's hard to do that, and they're very long games. So I'm excited to see where they go. I'm excited to see if they do make some improvements to like quality of life things. But ultimately, I think that these of the HD 2D games that have come out lately might still feel a little dated, and that's okay. For that, there's a lot of people who have nostalgia for these games. A lot of people haven't played them because they didn't come over from Japan in certain ways, or you had to play them on Game Boy, or yada yada yada. But I will certainly be checking out 3 because I've never played 3, and I don't think the story is going to matter enough for you to be like, oh, bummer, I really wish I played 1 and 2. Though now we know that 1 and 2 are coming out later in 2025. If you want to go back and play those. It's weird to me that they're doing 1, 2, and 3 in the reverse order or whatever. Or I guess it's going to be 3 and then maybe 1 and 2 as a package. But whatever. Nintendo and Square Enix weirdos for sure. Now, make Dragon Warrior monsters in this style. They won't do it, but oh my god, if they did, my life would just be complete, guys. It would be amazing. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, I'm excited for more HD 2D in general. It shows that Square Enix is in favor of this style, and honest to god, if they want to bring any more old games forward in it or make brand new games, I would absolutely love to see a brand new Final Fantasy entry commit to being an HD 2D game from day one. That would be something special, and I think it could be something that Final Fantasy maybe needs, as we've seen 16 and 7 Rebirth maybe not hit Square Enix's goals, which can sometimes be overly lofty, but maybe the scope and scale of certain of their RPGs and sagas and franchises, you know, find a different avenue, and that'd be cool. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. It's coming in January of 2025. This is what I was talking about at the beginning of the video. I'm very perplexed that they are going to push games all the way into the beginning of next year. This means to me that they quite possibly aren't going to put out the successor to the Switch until later of next year. I think most of us expected them to follow the playbook of the original Switch, in which they announce it in October. We get more details in like December, and then come March we have the system. I think now that with, you know, this announcement and also the announcement of Metroid Prime 4, that there's a good chance that the Switch is not fully ready yet, that they need some more time to cook on whatever their launch titles are or something like that, and that they are going to push it into fall. And that would make perfect sense. I mean, I don't see why not. It's a little crazy because, I mean, I guess they have games that are carrying them through. I mean, if this comes in January, which it does, you know, there's something to play at the beginning of the year. Maybe you get, you know, you keep getting the Zelda, or, you know, some people buying this new Zelda game. Maybe there's some other, I guess there's Luigi's Mansion coming out later this year. So maybe there's some stuff to carry them through the summer, or they just have a really low summer and then a banging fall. It's a little perplexing though. Also, this didn't look great when I saw it. It looked very much like an up-res of the 3DS version of this game. I'm a little perplexed as to where this rumored Nintendo EAD 2D Donkey Kong is, because that has been a rumor for a long time. It was fairly substantiated back in the day, and then it went completely silent. Things get canned all the time. You know, people switch plans or get it switch. And we'll see. I still believe that rumor out there somewhere. I think that the Mario Odyssey team is working on a Donkey Kong game. I think that Nintendo typically likes to have a mainline entry in each like mainline Mario and Zelda character, each Nintendo character on each system. So I still wouldn't be surprised if that Donkey Kong like platformer open world kind of platformer game came out on the Switch, maybe cross-gen with the next console. But I still believe those rumors, and it's a little weird that we get something like Donkey Kong Country Returns, although it could be for synergy with the universal opening of Donkey Kong Country, which is what they're calling the Donkey Kong portion of the theme park that they are doing at Universal Studios. You know, there are bigger business things that are afoot sometimes than we always think about as gamers, and I'm willing to accept that. However, I do think that it's time for a mainline Donkey Kong game in the version of the Switch. The Switch has done this upscaling of popularity for every single game that has come out on it from the mainstay Nintendo franchise, including Zelda, which was not necessarily the biggest seller before Breath of the Wild. So let's see, where's the big DK? Okay, so what would I grade this Nintendo Direct on the NGD NPD scale, which is a 10-point scale, but it also has some 0.5 rooms in there. For me, I'm gonna put this at like a 6.57. I think that there is two really big announcements that mattered a lot. Those announcements, to be fair, are like 9 or 10 level announcements on, you know, some showcases. You know, those are hugely hype moments. But even here, both of those come with some caveats and questions. Now, does something having questions necessarily take it down from its hype? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And for me, the main thing is that until I know what's coming next for Nintendo, I'm not ready to say these two games are going to be even for me. Like, you know, if they're not cross-compatible with the Switch successor, then I'm straight up probably never going to play them, or not play them until way later when they port them again. Something like that. So, you know, I need to see what Nintendo's strategy is going forward. I need to see what kind of fidelity the hardware has to be able to run certain experiences like Link's Awakening didn't run so great, and to see a truly next gen, or at least current gen, Metroid Prime 4. So I still have caveats on both of them. While I liked what I saw, there's some questions and there's some concerns, especially with Metroid, but then also with the combat system of Echoes of Wisdom. So I'm gonna land on a 6.5 for this Nintendo Direct. I know there's plenty of people out there that are saying Nintendo won E3 or whatever, you know, like that. But the Xbox show to me was much more like hit after hit of amazing looking experiences with unique art styles, play styles, and they were all truly next gen looking, even if they were an indie game or like a smaller, you know, team title. And sometimes Nintendo just really isn't firing on that type of cylinder. I know that their goals are far different from some of the other game publishers out there, but I don't really see why they can't be a little bit of both sometimes, and that's perplexing to me. So 6.5 here on NGD. Thank you so much for watching the video. Once again, my name is Gage Luke, aka Luke Shot First. You can follow me at Twitter at Luke Shot First, and you can follow NPD and see all the stuff that NGD and NPD does there at NPD Squad. You see it right down below. Also, don't forget about twitch.tv/Neon Pocket Dimension, where we stream all of our content, including the Neon Pocket Dimension podcast, which happens Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific time, weekly. That's great. And then comes out as a YouTube video later. So that's the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Neon Pocket Dimension. And for all your gaming content like this, you can see that at youtube.com/@Neon Gaming Dimension. So thank you so much for hanging out with us and watching this content. Please, what did you think of the Direct? Give it a like down below. Subscribe to us if you want more Nintendo, more video game content in general. Tell us what you thought about this Direct. I'm very excited to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time. Peace.